Clint Eastwood doesn't throw tantrums. He doesn't launch Twitter feuds. He doesn't even need to raise his voice. In Hollywood, where drama is currency and grudges are worn like medals, Eastwood built a career on calm professionalism and brutal efficiency. But don't mistake that quiet for forgiveness. If you waste his time, you're done. For decades, Eastwood has maintained a personal blacklist, a list of actors he quietly swore never to work with again. No public statements, no tabloid drama, just a door that silently closes forever. And the names on that list? Oscar winners, method legends, even directors. In today's video, we dive deep into 7 actors who were banished from Eastwood's orbit. Their stories reveal not only the exact moment they crossed the line, but also the deeper philosophy behind Eastwood's entire career.
Matt Damon, the one who talked back. You wouldn't expect to see Matt Damon at the top of Clint Eastwood's blacklist. In fact, many fans don't even realize there's any tension between them at all. Damon has only ever spoken positively about Eastwood in public, praising his precision, focus, and unbelievable speed as a director. But behind the scenes of 2 high-profile films, Clint Eastwood came to a quiet and irreversible decision. He would never work with Matt Damon again. It all started on Invictus, 2009, a powerful biographical drama about Nelson Mandela and the South African rugby team that helped unify a divided nation. Damon played team captain Francois Pienaar, while Morgan Freeman, one of Eastwood's closest collaborators, portrayed Mandela. The film was emotionally rich and historically significant, exactly the kind of story Clint loves to tell. And at first, things were smooth. Damon showed up on time, he was respectful, he took direction. But soon cracks began to show, not in Damon's professionalism, but in his process. He wasn't the type to just say the lines and go home. Damon came from a background of deep, actor-driven analysis. He studied his characters thoroughly. He asked questions, lots of them. He wanted to know why his character stood that way, whether the scene might land better with a different tone, how the real Pienaar would have reacted to each moment. This is standard behavior for most actors, but on a Clint Eastwood set, it was a problem. Eastwood's directing style is famously streamlined. He's known for doing 2 or 3 takes, max. His sets are nearly silent, no chaos, no drama, no relit scenes or long debates. To Clint, the first take is usually the best. The second is a backup, and the third, that's only if lightning struck and missed. So when Damon would ask for a 4th take, or even politely suggest a slight adjustment to the script, it created a subtle but growing friction. Crew members noticed Clint's expressions hardening. He wouldn't snap or argue, that wasn't his way, but he would quietly drift to the edges of the set, arms folded, watching Damon explain himself in circles. One assistant director remembered a specific moment on Invictus. Damon had just completed a particularly emotional scene, a private conversation with Freeman's Mandela character. It was solid, clean. Eastwood was ready to move on. Damon, however, asked for another take. He wanted to try a version that felt more internal, something he felt might better match the quiet dignity of his character. Clint didn't respond, he just nodded. They shot it again. Then, Damon asked for another, this time to try a subtle reaction on the final line. And that's when Eastwood reportedly turned to a crew member and muttered, "I'm not here to find the scene. I'm here to shoot it." That may seem like a small moment, but on a Clint Eastwood set, it was monumental. Still, Damon finished Invictus strong. The film was nominated for multiple awards. Eastwood was proud of the result. But when the opportunity came to work together again just 1 year later, on Hereafter 2010, the tension only escalated. Hereafter was a darker, more abstract film about mortality, spiritualism, and the afterlife. Damon played a reluctant psychic who could communicate with the dead. The role was challenging, and Damon dove into it with his usual intensity. But this time, Eastwood wasn't as patient. On the first day of shooting, Damon arrived with pages of notes. He had questions about tone, about dialogue, about the emotional journey of his character. He wanted to explore different rhythms, try varied approaches, see what felt most truthful. Clint's response? "You know the lines. Just say them." It wasn't rude, it wasn't aggressive, it was pure Clint, unapologetically direct. Still, Damon pressed forward. During one key scene, Damon felt the emotional transition between 2 lines was too abrupt. He asked for a pause in the middle of the take to reset emotionally. Clint agreed. Once. When Damon asked again on the next setup, Clint just said, "Let's get it in one." Later that day, Damon reportedly spoke to a producer, concerned that Clint wasn't giving him space to find the moment. The producer, who had worked with Eastwood for years, simply said, "Clint is the space. Either you find it in the silence, or you don't." What really sealed Damon's fate came near the end of the shoot. A scene was scheduled late in the day under a rapidly setting sun. Damon, ever the craftsman, wanted to rehearse it once before filming. Clint refused. He wanted to roll, immediately. The sun was perfect, the light was fading, and Eastwood, now in his 80s, wasn't about to waste time staging and resetting. Damon hesitated. He still had questions. Clint reportedly looked at him, calm as ever, and said, "You've been thinking about this for 2 weeks. If you don't have it now, you never will." They shot the scene in one take. Clint walked away satisfied, but when the film wrapped, there was no emotional farewell. No handshake photos, just distance. Since Hereafter, Eastwood has directed over a dozen films. Some of them, like Sully and American Sniper, would have been ideal vehicles for someone like Matt Damon. But he was never called. Casting directors close to Clint say Damon's name has come up more than once, and each time Eastwood simply said, "Let's look at someone else." It wasn't personal. Not entirely. Clint respects Damon's work. He recognizes the talent. But in Clint's world, method and movement don't mix. In 1968, Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton were cast in the ambitious World War II action thriller Where Eagles Dare. On paper, it was a dream team. Eastwood, the rising American icon of stoic cool, Burton, the classically trained Welsh titan of stage and screen. But by the end of the shoot, Eastwood had made a quiet, resolute vow. He would never work with Burton again. Ever. Why? Because for Clint Eastwood, nothing matters more than respect for the work. And Richard Burton, brilliant as he was, showed up with everything but that. At the time, Burton was already a legend and a tabloid fixture. His off-and-on marriage to Elizabeth Taylor was front-page news around the world. He was drinking heavily, working erratically, and taking roles mostly to fund his lavish lifestyle. Still, studios continued to court him, trusting that his talent would outweigh the turbulence. Eastwood, meanwhile, was still carving out his post-spaghetti western identity. Where Eagles Dare was a crucial step in his transition to Hollywood legitimacy. He treated the production with absolute seriousness, arriving early, knowing every line, and doing his own stunts. From day one, the contrast was obvious. Burton reportedly arrived late to the first table read, sunglasses on, nursing a hangover. He slurred through the script and left early. Clint said nothing, but he noticed. During filming, things got worse. Burton would show up visibly hungover, some days still drunk, and struggle to get through even basic dialogue. The scenes that required tension and urgency dragged on for hours as Burton fumbled lines, forgot cues, or wandered off set. A camera operator from the production recalled, "Clint was there at 5:30 every morning, hair combed, script in hand. Richard would roll in at 10, sunglasses on, glassy-eyed, and say, 'Where the hell are we starting today?'" In one especially infamous moment, Burton was tasked with delivering a key monologue revealing the true purpose of the mission. It was supposed to be an intense, emotionally grounded scene. It took 23 takes. Clint nailed his side of the exchange on the first take, and then waited, and waited, and waited. A production assistant remembered the moment vividly. By the 10th take, Clint had stopped going back to his mark. He just stood off to the side, watching Richard flounder. He wasn't angry, he wasn't yelling, he was just done. And yet Eastwood didn't confront him. He never did. That wasn't his way. He let the cameras roll, did his part, and kept moving. But the judgment was sealed. What made things worse, and turned Eastwood's silent frustration into something closer to contempt, was Burton's attitude. Between takes, Burton would joke about the film, calling it a bit of nonsense, boys with guns, or worst of all, a paycheck. On one occasion, he reportedly told a grip, "This isn't acting. This is running around with fake guns in the Alps." Clint overheard, and while he didn't react, those around him knew that comment had been a nail in the coffin. Eastwood has always viewed genre films with quiet reverence. Whether it's a western, a thriller, or an action flick, he believes in treating the material with dignity. To hear someone of Burton's stature dismiss the entire process as frivolous wasn't just offensive, it was disqualifying. One assistant director summed it up like this: "Clint can forgive a bad performance, he can't forgive a bad attitude." After the film wrapped, Eastwood never spoke to Burton again. They were never publicly seen together, never mentioned each other in interviews, but decades later, when asked in an interview about the experience of working with Burton, Clint offered a response so terse it was unmistakable: "Talented guy, wasted talent." Those 3 words said it all. What stings most, perhaps, is that Eastwood likely did admire Burton on some level. He respected classical training, he understood stage discipline, but for Clint, preparation is sacred. Commitment is everything. If you waste people's time, or worse, mock the work, you're gone. Where Eagles Dare went on to become a cult classic, often replayed on cable and adored by fans for its snowy settings, clever twists, and bombastic finale. But the memories Clint carried from that set had nothing to do with the explosions or the applause. They had everything to do with a brilliant actor stumbling through a role he didn't respect. While Eastwood, calm and steady, showed up every day to carry the weight. In many ways, Burton became a cautionary tale for Eastwood's career. From that point forward, Clint became more selective about who he worked with. He began watching not just for talent, but for discipline. He looked for the quiet workers, the ones who showed up early, stayed late, and never treated the material as beneath them. And if someone reminded him of Burton, flamboyant, unfocused, or dismissive, they were out before the first shot was ever fired. Gene Seberg, The Meltdown That Killed the Music. In Paint Your Wagon, 1969, Eastwood played a singing prospector in a musical western. It was a bizarre role for the normally stone-faced star, but even stranger was his experience working alongside Gene Seberg. Already under psychological distress from FBI surveillance and public harassment, Seberg was emotionally unstable throughout the shoot. She would wander off set, forget choreography, and often break down crying between takes. Clint tried to remain patient, but when the romantic scenes took triple the time to film and she repeatedly questioned her lines mid-scene, Eastwood began to pull away emotionally. One crew member said, "He was never cruel, but by the 3rd week, he wouldn't make eye contact." Then came the post-release interviews, where Seberg subtly blamed Clint's stiff performance for the film's failure. That sealed her fate. Clint never spoke negatively of her publicly, especially after her tragic death in 1979, but in private, he reportedly said, "Some people aren't built for this. I just can't do it twice." Tommy Lee Jones, The Alpha Standoff. In 1993's In the Line of Fire, Tommy Lee Jones played a chilling assassin, squaring off against Eastwood's aging Secret Service agent. Their scenes crackled with tension because, according to sources, the tension was real. Both men are famously intense, but while Eastwood separates performance from reality, Jones tends to stay in character long after the director calls cut. During one scene, Jones reportedly stared down Eastwood even after filming stopped, his eyes full of cold aggression. Clint just turned and walked away. A sound technician heard him later that day grumble, "Life's too short for that bullshit." The final straw came when Jones insisted on reshaping a climactic scene, arguing with the director and suggesting his own camera blocking. Clint, ever the professional, said nothing at the time. But when casting his next film, he made his feelings clear. Let's look at other options. Clint Eastwood and Leonardo DiCaprio. 2 perfectionists, 2 icons, 2 completely different species of artist. Their 2011 collaboration, J. Edgar, was highly anticipated, but the behind-the-scenes clash of styles made it one of Clint's most exhausting projects ever. DiCaprio is all about preparation, historical research, psychological immersion, 10 takes per scene. Eastwood? He wants the actor to show up ready, nail it once, and move on. One set insider described it like this: Leo wanted to explore, Clint wanted to shoot and move on. It was a beautiful disaster. During an emotional breakdown scene, DiCaprio asked for another take, and another, and another. By the 6th, Eastwood had wandered off set, coffee in hand, silently fuming. His parting comment at wrap, Some people want to analyze the mountain. I just want to reach the top and enjoy the view. No malice, no anger. But DiCaprio's name hasn't come up for any Clint-led projects since. Barbra Streisand, the feud that never made it on set. Sometimes you don't need to share a set to end up on Clint Eastwood's blacklist. Barbra Streisand and Clint Eastwood have never worked together, and yet theirs is one of the most storied silent feuds in modern Hollywood. The clash began in the early 90s when Streisand was attached to direct The Bridges of Madison County. She spent months shaping the story, adding characters, rewriting scenes, and meticulously planning camera moves. Then she walked away. When Clint took over, he stripped it down, simplifying the plot, cutting characters, and filming in weeks what Streisand had envisioned taking months. It wasn't just a creative decision, it was a statement. Industry insiders say Clint saw Streisand's perfectionism as the antithesis of everything he valued. When her film The Prince of Tides was snubbed for a Best Director Oscar, Clint reportedly quipped, "Maybe if she spent less time adjusting the lighting and more time directing, she'd have finished more than 3 films in 15 years. He never said it publicly. He didn't have to. His silence said everything.
Sean Penn. Brilliant, explosive, political. He starred in Clint's 2003 masterpiece Mystic River, delivering a performance that won him an Oscar. But Clint never called him again. Why? Sources say Penn was difficult on set, emotionally intense, argumentative about scene blocking, and frequently requested multiple takes. Eastwood complied because the performance was good. But after filming, he told his assistant, "There's only room for one director on my set." Clint Eastwood's blacklist isn't about ego, it's about boundaries. He values instinct over analysis, efficiency over indulgence, trust over control. Those who thrive with him, Hilary Swank, Morgan Freeman, Gene Hackman, understand that. They show up, they deliver, they move on. Those who don't, no second chances. Eastwood's approach may seem harsh in an era of collaboration and creativity, but it's made him one of the most enduring directors of all time. Let's recap. Matt Damon talked too much. Richard Burton drank too much. Gene Seberg spiraled too much. Tommy Lee Jones challenged too much. Leonardo DiCaprio analyzed too much. Barbra Streisand controlled too much. Sean Penn was just too much. Each one learned the same lesson. In Clint Eastwood's world, you don't get to waste time, and you don't get a second chance. But what do you think? Is Eastwood a relic of the past or a master of artistic discipline? Are these grudges or just professional standards? Let us know in the comments.